against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
You know, I got to tell you, that Bitcoin conference in Nashville over the weekend, it feels like one of those seminal moments that people are going to be talking about years from now. My next guest actually played a major role at the conference and continues to be a passionate advocate dedicated to spreading the word and educating the masses. Joining me now, Coin Stories podcast host Natalie Brunell. Natalie, you know, it's so weird because it wasn't long ago. Bitcoin was tumbling, right? It was under 20,000. Even people who loved it said it may go to 10,000. Could you imagine now, I mean, just not long after that, you're getting shout outs on X from U.S. senators, sitting U.S. senators for discussing Bitcoin. It's come a long way in a short period of time.
Yes, it has. We missed you in Nashville, Charles, because this conference was truly historic. You had a former U.S. president telling people not to sell their Bitcoin. And people are really ready for change and a pro-Bitcoin administration. Some of our current leaders have been leading a war on digital assets, so they need to go. Because remember, Bitcoin was created by the people for the people. It wasn't delivered by Wall Street or Washington, D.C. It wasn't promoted by big tech. It emerged from the free market to become the 8th or 9th largest asset in the world. And now 2 of the 3 candidates are lobbying this community because it's grown into a massive voting bloc. And they're seriously proposing to adopt Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset for the U.S. So this is historic and shows that Bitcoin is winning.
It really.
Yo, everybody, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolutionary breaking news, culture, manic warfare. We'll be your guide through the separation of money and state. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. Welcome to the most watched daily Bitcoin live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X, Simply Bitcoin Live. Natalie Brunell coming in hot. But the reason I want to play you guys that clip this morning is that I got to say it, guys. The Bitcoin conference, when you had Donald Trump making his speech, a lot of Bitcoiners were very uncomfortable. He kept saying crypto. He wasn't exactly dialed in compared to RFK. RFK definitely went up to him with his speech. We definitely broke into the mainstream. You had Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire making an appearance. You had all of the legacy corporate media, financial media, and just corporate media there. They literally had cameras to bring to this event because the potential future president was making a speech there. That is absolutely historic. Talk about the Overton window shifting, the Overton window breaking. And even if Donald Trump doesn't get elected, these ideas are now introduced, right? And I think the key thing that Donald Trump said was basically the introduction that the United States government, if he is to get elected, was going to look at Bitcoin as a strategic reserve stockpile. They were right before reserve asset, so stockpile to be specific. But that is definitely a step in the right direction. I think RFK, as a member of, as someone who's running as an independent, is able to say things a little bit more radical in terms of the Overton window. For us Bitcoiners, it's not radical at all. But remember, RFK doesn't really have a chance of winning. According to the latest poll numbers and the betting odds, Trump does have a chance of winning. So the fact that we have a mainstream political candidate that has a high probability of winning the presidency saying everything he said is a really, really big deal for our movement. And it's not a coincidence that literally that Monday, yesterday, Bitcoin that was, belonged to this Treasury Department, they seized it from various sources. It's not a coincidence that moved, right? And a lot of people are speculating that they're getting ready to dump it. And another thing that I got to say is, and something that I feel passionate about, is that I don't think Bitcoin is a partisan issue. I think that it was made a partisan issue as soon as this specific administration started going after the industry, and that created an opportunity for their political opponents to capitalize on that. And it's crazy that they're still not changing tune. In fact, on Monday, they're just like, you know what? Trump says we're going to make it a strategic reserve. We're going to sell it right before Trump potentially gets into office. Like, it's crazy. I don't believe anything the Democratic Party has to say at this point. It's kind of put up or shut up in regards to Bitcoin. We're not a political show, but it's kind of put up or shut up. Biden is currently in office. Biden has the ability to free Ross. So he could take that political advantage away from Trump. Like, they can take a stance, and a lot of Senate, I believe it's 70 members of the Democratic Party were actually wrote a letter to the Elizabeth Warren camp, which they're the camp that's so hostile towards this industry. And they were asking him basically to change tune, right? Like, what are you guys doing? In fact, we did have a member of the Democratic Party that spoke at the convention. So I hope that keeps going, because Natalie was absolutely right. Like, Bitcoin is a money by the people for the people. And this Bitcoin conference, I think, really represented the first time that our movement and the ethos of our movement started to penetrate into the mainstream consciousness. And I think the best is yet to come. This is just getting started. One of the things that Trump said, his speech was hilarious, by the way. I'd highly recommend watching it. One of the things, you guys are going to have so much energy. You guys are going to say no more energy. Like, it's so funny. But one of the things he said was that the industry was still in its infancy. And that's something that I completely agree. And I think that's something that gets lost on everybody, right? In other news as well, Michael Saylor's keynote was absolutely phenomenal. The way that he broke it down into various sections about how he described that, look, if you want to maintain your purchasing power, Bitcoin is the superior asset. Real estate is inferior, bonds are inferior, equities are inferior. And he broke down the reasons as to why that was. But one of the things that I want to talk about today was he was doing some price predictions, which is very interesting. And he laid out three cases: the bear case, which is about roughly $3 million per Bitcoin by 2045, the base case, which is about $13 million Bitcoin by 2045, and the bull case, which is $49 million Bitcoin by 2045. And again, this isn't just, some average Joe or some just random Bitcoin Twitter anon. This is, the chairman of a publicly traded company, saying those things. And I think his logic is sound. And for anyone that finds those ideas radical, I think it's a good idea to look into the past, right? If I would have told you back in 2014 that Bitcoin was going to be sitting pretty at $66,254 today on July 30th, 2024, you would have laughed me out of the room. But if you knew that information, I think you would have done everything in your power just to go all in Bitcoin in 2014. You would have just worked. You would have just done everything in your power to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. So I think if Bitcoin continues in that trend, even if it does a tenth of what it did in the past, you're still going to be extremely happy with your decision to save in Bitcoin versus saving in fiat versus saving in other traditional kind of investment options, really. So anyways, it's going to be a great show. And also we have a very special guest, also someone I consider a friend as well. We have the CEO of Thunder Funder. Thunder did an amazing presentation at the Bitcoin conference. And Thunder Funder essentially gives the ability for the everyday person, right, to invest in Bitcoin companies, which is extremely exciting. Anyways, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right, let's have some fun. It's an honor to be hanging with you. I consider you a friend as well, even if you've taken many of my sats in many poker games, but I don't hold it against you. You are definitely a friend. Thanks for hanging with me and letting me share the big news about Thunder Funder.
Absolutely. And it's an incredible opportunity for you guys as well in the audience. Like, imagine if you're able to get into, like, the equivalent would be like an Amazon or Facebook, and you were actually able to invest in those companies in the early stage, right? Mike's platform that he's building, I've been watching it closely, even though I might not understand a lot of those things because I'm a media-minded person. I know he's been putting his heart and soul into really building this, and it gives you an opportunity for you guys to invest in early stage Bitcoin startups, which could potentially become an incredible opportunity. So I'm really excited to hear more about that during the culture segment. I want to bring up my legendary co-host who filled in for me yesterday, Opti. Man, Opti's an absolute workhorse, and I do want to give a shout out for him filling in for me yesterday. And Opti, bro, that news desk, I don't know if you guys saw it. I think we uploaded it over the weekend, but shout out to the Bitcoin Magazine crew, David Bailey, Mike Germano, Shane McShane, and Pete Ruzzo for allowing a Simply Bitcoin takeover 2 days in a row at the Bitcoin conference, which was, absolutely incredible. So shout out to you guys and shout out to Opti. I mean, Opti, bro, like, how did it feel, dude? I mean, I think
Well,
you
it
gave a
was
shout
fun.
out to. I think you gave a shout out to your mom.
Hey, you know, I'm a mother's boy. I'm unashamedly a mama's boy. And of course, I had to give a shout out to my mom. She's the only reason why I'm here, man. But yeah, hey, Nico, I think the funniest part about this is you tried to give me the week off this week. And then you're like, wait, actually, I need you to come on the show. I need you to host. So good thing I told you no, guys. I do this for you guys. I'm like, no, I got to make the show. We got to make the show. And then Nico hits me up in the morning. He's like, oh, actually, sorry, bro. I'm not going to make the show, so we got to make it happen. But yeah, man, it was great. I love the Bitcoin Mag team. It was an honor to take over the news desk. You and I had a blast. It felt like a live Simply Bitcoin show on the news desk, so that was great, man.
Yeah, it was incredibly a fun time, and it's such a historic conference. And actually, I'll throw a little tidbit for you guys. Simply Bitcoin's fourth anniversary was July 27th, the day of Donald Trump's speech at the Bitcoin conference. So that was Simply's fourth anniversary. It's just crazy how all the timing of all that stuff works. Anyways, before we jump into the show, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Of course, our sponsors make this show possible. And guys, I want to talk about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody coin stack. It's a publicly traded company coming out of Canada that recently expanded to all 50 US states. What makes Bitcoin Well different? Well, it's automatic self-custody. It's self-custody by default. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. It doesn't allow you to leave funds on the platform, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. By the way, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you can redeem those points. You can use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. What is that? Well, you toss a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, and you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. So get your Lightning wallets ready. We're going to do that right now. We're going to toss a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. Bada bing, bada boom. And first person to scan the QR code has won 500 Satoshis. All right, everybody, we have lots to talk about. Let's get to numbers. Here we go.
The Bitcoin numbers.
I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Stamp Seed. All right, everybody. So don't write down seed words on paper. Don't put yourself in that situation where you potentially lose your generational wealth because for whatever reason you decided to use paper and you didn't stamp your seed into one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. One solid piece, small form factor, professional metal stamping tools. Hammer them in letter by letter, proof of work, seed phrase storage. No loose pieces. More pieces equals points of failure. Easy to hide. Buy the kit and get as many plates as you need. Use holes to mount plate into a wall or under a desk. Cover plates coming soon. Bitcoin logo metal stamp seed also available. They have special edition plates as well. They make them for the Bitcoin conference. We have one as well as Simply Bitcoin. So guys, stamp your generational wealth into titanium. Opti's showing it off right now. You can scan the QR code on your screen, or you could check the link in the video description. By the way, if you use promo code SIMPLY, you get 15% off anything on their website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $66,300. $66,300. Sats per dollar, 1,508. Block height, 854,683. Blocks to halving, 195,317. Halving estimate, March 20th, 2028. Total Lightning Network capacity, 5,061 BTC. Capacity value, 335 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation, 1.49%. Market capitalization, 1.34 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.89%. In the grand scheme of things, we are just getting started. I truly believe that. I think it was actually Donald Trump that during his speech, he talk about the Overton window shifting, talk about the Overton window breaking. Donald Trump even said, he's like, this is going to take the market cap of gold. You know how crazy that is for, an ex-president, potential future president, we'll find out in November, say that Bitcoin is going to overtake the market cap of gold. Like, that is absolutely freaking insane. Anyways, the thing that I wanted to talk about today, we'll play this video and then we'll discuss it with the panel, is Michael Saylor making his bull case for a $49 million Bitcoin by 2045. I gotta say, holy cow, that is I feel like every Bitcoin conference, it's more bullish. Now, of course, Michael Saylor, his company, they hold over 250,000 Bitcoin, so it kind of makes sense, as to why he would say this. The incentives. I gotta say, it's hyper bullish. But if you pay attention to his logic, his thought process, it almost feels like a YouTube clickbait title, bro. But it's not. Like, he actually said this. He actually said that this is one of his, his bull cases. Now, 2045 is, it's about 21 years from now, right? So it's, it's not around the corner. But at the same time, I mean, $49 million Bitcoin. You get 1 million. You get one Bitcoin right now at 66,000. You could potentially be worth $49 million in 21 years. I mean, that's not a bad deal at all. Most people don't even make close to that amount of money. Anyways, I'm going to play this video. We'll talk about it.
But what's happening? Here's my macro Bitcoin forecast. It's 21 years. Goes out to the year 2045. What do I think will happen? Well, I've got a bear case and a bull case, but what I think will happen is that 55% ARR goes to 50%, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. It's between 50 and 20. It'll gradually decelerate till it's growing about twice as fast as the S&P index. And at that rate, Bitcoin's $13 million a coin in the year 2045. 13 million. It could be a 3 million bear case. It could be a 49 million bull case. But what is Bitcoin? 7% of the world's assets then. What about the rest of the assets? Well, I actually think that AIs and technology are going to revolutionize tech. We had no companies worth $1 trillion. Then we had a bunch of $1 trillion companies. You're going to see more because you're going to see companies with 100,000 AIs and no employees, and they're going to do the work of companies that used to have 100,000 employees. You're going to see mega corps develop, shipping robots and self-driving cars, and a company that gives a personal physician to 1 billion people without any doctors on the payroll. So clearly, equity is going to grow fast. Gold's going to get demonetized. Land will be less monetized. But look, here's the future in 2045. Doesn't look that revolutionary. It looks like today. It's just that.
I mean, 7% of the global reserve, global assets for, those crazy, I would say what we perceive as those crazy predictions today. I don't think that's so absurd. And the reason that I say that is because I think, and this is what Saylor said in the beginning of his presentation. He did an excellent job describing it. Like, Bitcoin is a superior asset compared to real estate. Real estate, you have to pay property taxes. You have to pay maintenance. It kind of, chews into it, right? Bond. And he was making the case of like, what's the lifespan of this, right? The example that he gave for real estate was basically a property in Miami Beach, a $10 million property in Miami Beach. And over 10 years, you're going to have to pull up just in property taxes, the equivalent of that property, right? Or in maintenance fees and all that stuff. Bonds, he gave it a lifespan about 30 years. Equities, I think he gave it a lifespan. So he was giving lifespans to these specific assets, but essentially, if you put Bitcoin to self-custody, I think the number that he gave it was like 10,000 years, which is just absurd. Even custodied Bitcoin was like 1,000 years or so. So yes, I think it's inevitable as people start to realize, like, especially like if you're like a Chinese citizen or, these citizens where you live in a country that has like tight capital controls and they just don't want you to leave with the money. Like what a lot of those people do is that they'll go overseas and they'll start buying properties in like Manhattan and Miami, and those apartments will just like remain empty. And they're doing that just to maintain their purchasing power and just to take their money out. But now that you have a technology, now that you have a tool where you can literally write down a 12 or 24 word seed phrase, and you can take all of that wealth with you, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. There's no maintenance fees. I mean, you might have to upgrade a hardware wallet a couple times, but that's minuscule in the grand scheme of things. Like, technically, if you die and you don't tell anyone where your private keys are, like that money isn't moving till the end of time. Like, what else could you say that with? You really can't say that with. So is it that absurd to think that a superior asset like Bitcoin with absolute scarcity, nothing else has absolute scarcity, is it really absurd to think that it might be worth 7% of the total global assets? Like, is that really that absurd? I don't think that that's absurd. And if that's not absurd, then just the base case is $13 million. I mean, and what are we sitting at? 66,000 right now? Like, you'll be worth more than 10 million if you're able to get your hands on one Bitcoin right now. I mean, like, that's a pretty good effing deal. I don't know. What do you think, Muzz?
Yeah, I mean, to be a whole coiner, that's the goal, right? It's the goal of a lot of people. But, I think my biggest regret, and I've been in Bitcoin for quite a while, is not turning on just a daily, even just a silly buy at any point in time and just never turning it off. $10 a day, even at recently, whatever it went down to, was it 3,000 or 4,500? $10 a day with a $3,000 Bitcoin, which was not that long ago. You look like a genius right now. And just to go back in time and actually know what was going to happen and what will continue to happen, and think that for every $10 you were putting in then was pretty much a day's wage, or more than a day's wage for most people when you look at where we're at now. So, the DCA is the way to go. I know you preach on that and saving in Bitcoin, and all we can do is the best we can do. And, if those numbers come true, it's going to be insane. I mean, can you imagine somebody with 2 Bitcoin right now that's maybe in the middle class or upper middle class, and that's a lot of their savings, and they took a risk, and all of a sudden they're sitting on $20 million if this thing does what we all think it's going to do? I mean, it's just super exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, it's power back to the people. It's incredibly exciting. And I think it's an incredible opportunity for everybody. And I think it's important to look at the past if you want to have an idea of where the future is going. And what's the line, Opti?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Yeah, don't be burdened by what has. I don't even know how to apply to that, but you guys get the general gist of it. Opti, what's your take on this? Is this hyper bullish? Bro, this is when I heard that, I was like, holy shit, like, holy cow, like, that is extremely bullish. But I mean, the way that he explains it and the logic that he's using is very sound. So it's not like, like clickbait, YouTube videos, duck face, like, crazy shit. Like, he actually, he's making these 3 cases. And even if it's the bear case, like, let's just say it's the bear case, right? Let's just say it doesn't get to 13 million. Let's just say it gets to 3 million, right? Personally, I'd be a little bit disappointed, but let's just say that's the case, right? Let's take the ultra conservative route. That's still an excellent return. I mean, $3 million for 66,000. Like, that's an amazing return. Muzz, you have more experience than me in like the investment side of things. Where else could you get that type of return other than investing in Bitcoin startups, of course?
Well, it's true. There aren't really any places where you can get that kind of appreciation, which was one of the things that got me interested in angel investing in the first place. Is once you start seeing some of the returns that have happened over time, and not a meme stock or a shit coin, for lack of a better words, investing in early stage companies is definitely something that, where you can get a tremendous, crazy return, but you can also lose all your money, which we know we're not going to do in Bitcoin, right? So it's not a substitute for it. It's just a way to complement it.
Of course. Like, and it's all about risk, right? Like, if you're, it's all about, like, look, if you're willing to risk, a certain small percentage of your portfolio, knowing that there is potential upside, it might be worthwhile to you. Opti, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so when I heard this speech, I literally had to, like, double take. I'm like, wait, 3 million. I'm like, that's kind of bearish. Like 13 million in 21 years. You're like, yeah, that seems about right. And then he just drops like 49 million bomb on us, and you're just like, wait, really? Like, I know we get stupidly bullish, and I always tell you guys, like, stay bull-hearted. This is how we win, is by being hopeful about the future. But even for us Bitcoiners that are extremely bullish, 49 million by 21 years from now, it still seems absurd. But again, if you were in Bitcoin a long time ago, you're buying Bitcoin at $1,000, you probably would have said that 66,000 seems absurd. I remember when I got into Bitcoin, everyone was saying like $10,000 was like the moon case. And now we're just constantly moving the price up higher. But yeah, like Muzz was saying, you know, for average people of average means, like all of us that hang out on the show, if you can get your hands on a coin and hold that for the long term, like it's going to be life-changing money. And this is what we always say here on the show. It's like none of us are bullish enough because we're, you know, I know as much as I always say we're playing Hungry Hippo with Bitcoin and we want to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. But I think we underestimate how much our purchasing power will increase in the next decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. And it really reminds me of that one quote where it's like you overestimate what you can do in 2 years, but you underestimate what you can do in 10 years. And I think that's what we're all kind of doing here with Bitcoin. Remember the law of big numbers, like humans can't understand big numbers. And I think where we're going is going to be, you know, what can be is going to be unburdened by what has been. And so
that's such a good line for Bitcoin, bro.
It really is. We're stealing that one. But I know a lot of us Bitcoiners are looking at the past, previous cycles in Bitcoin and being like, oh, diminishing returns. Oh, Bitcoin's not going to go as far and as high as we think it will be. Like you guys are being overly bullish.
What can be.
Exactly. That's the point. That's the point of this is that like, I still fundamentally believe
should be unburdened by what has been.
Yes, I fundamentally believe that we have still seen a very small percentage on the adoption scale. And if people are bearish out there, they really just don't understand how many people are on planet Earth and how much capital can actually get into Bitcoin. So as much as $49 million in 21 years sounds like a ludicrous prediction, at least we got a price prediction and a time prediction. So only time will tell whether this is correct or whether this is just some hopium clickbait here. But hey, it's going up forever, Laura. So, you know, infinity divided by 21 million. Now we're seeing the game theory kick in and everyone is starting to realize they need some Bitcoin. So, hey, what can be unburdened by what has been, Nico?
Exactly. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. Lots to talk about.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. What can be? Anyways, talk about the Overton window absolutely breaking. It absolutely happened during the Bitcoin conference. I mean, this is insane. I was talking a little bit about it during the opening monologue. You know, not only did Trump promise to, free Ross again, he doubled down on that promise. Promised to fire Gary Gensler, which the crowd went wild. It like surprised them a little bit. He's like, "Whoa, I'm gonna say that again. I'm gonna fire Gary Gensler." Everyone's like, "Yeah." He obviously promised to, leave the industry alone. He kept saying how everyone's going to get rich, which was nice. And I think he took credit for the price going up at one point, which I found that interesting as well. But yeah, I think a lot of people were just a bit surprised, just because they've never seen a Trump speech before. I think also a lot of people were a bit like they wanted more. And I think the reason they wanted more is because JFK just went absolutely hard in the paint. Like what JFK did was insane. And compared to RFK's speech, Trump's speech was a bit underwhelming. Like RFK set the bar extremely high and Trump did not match it. But it's important, like, for everyone to understand, like, it's a lot easier for RFK to promise policies outside the Overton window as an independent candidate. And Trump's obviously tied to a major political party. I still think that Trump's speech was definitely a step in the right direction. It was absolutely historic. And it's going to be a major win for Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin industry in the United States if he gets elected. But I think really the huge news out of that entire speech, and he really like left this tidbit towards the end, was announcing that his administration wouldn't sell any more Bitcoin, and they would see Bitcoin as a one step short of strategic asset, but basically a strategic stockpile. Now, here's the difference between RFK and Trump is that RFK could, and you know, he said our administration is going to buy 4 million Bitcoin. We're going to put Bitcoin in strategic reserve asset. We're going to acquire all this Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But everyone has to remember that would be an executive order, right? Which means that once RFK were to leave office, any administration after him would be able to walk that back. So actually that needs to be codified into law. And that's why shortly after Trump made his speech, Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator, went on stage and he said, here's the bill that would make Bitcoin a strategic reserve asset into law so that you couldn't walk it back as an administration. Also, she also introduced a Bitcoin acquisition strategy up to $1 million to pay off the country's debt. So I love the way that they did it politically was very savvy. It was very interesting. And it's the way that things should be done, right? Because if you actually want to effectuate change, you have to do it through the legislative process rather than through the executive branch, because the executive branch only has so much power, right? So I think it was historic. And I think initially I was a bit disappointed, like a lot of other Bitcoiners, because clearly RFK won up Trump. But we have to be realistic, and we have to remember RFK is running as an independent and Trump is running as a mainstream Republican. Also, a lot of the things that RFK said were just completely radical. Like they would be viewed as completely radical. The media would they already hate Trump. They would just run with this, right? So very, very interesting. But I don't want to talk about that because I believe Opti talked about that yesterday. What I do want to talk about is something that really, really is important for me, which is this idea that Bitcoin is for everyone. It should not be a partisan issue. And I truly believe that the current Democratic Party does not represent the will of their constituents. Now, it's not black and white. Obviously, there was members of the Democratic Party, one of them being Ro Khanna, that he spoke some pretty good things about the industry. I have a clip right here.
But if we don't have Bitcoin, if we don't have cryptocurrencies, we're going to cede leadership in the financial innovation of the 21st century. Why would we do that? Why? We need to be the leaders. This is a payment that's going to be cheaper. It's going to be faster. It's going to have the ability to move a few cents across the world without the fees. It's going to make us more connected in a global society. I mean, all the Democrats who preach that we don't want to be isolationists, well, isn't rejecting cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin being isolationist because the rest of the world is using it? Absolutely. So this is actually connecting to the rest of the world. So the conference was saying, you know, let America lead when it comes to the instruments of financial innovation. And you have the Fed payment now, FedNow, and you have Zelle with the banks. I don't want a monopoly of the Fed and the banks deciding how to have instantaneous payments. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are competitive alternatives so that we don't have monopoly power. I thought the Democrats were opposed to monopoly power.
So, I mean, I think he's spot on, right? And I think that's just common sense. And that, again, he's not a Republican. Like, he's a Democrat. So this is what I've been saying. Like, this should not be a partisan issue. The current administration made it as such, and they should really be paying attention because, like, even with their own live stream numbers, like here is Vice President Harris delivering a keynote, and mind you, this Vice President Harris is going to be running for president, About 822 people were watching that. We currently have more people watching Simply Bitcoin right now. And compare that to the Bitcoin Magazine live stream, had 56,171 people watching live. And that's just on YouTube, by the way. On Twitter, it was much higher than that. So just to kind of give you an idea between the two. And by the way, Ro Khanna, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, wasn't the only one to feel that way. 27 other Democratic politicians signed a letter to the DNC and to Elizabeth Warren to end the anti-Bitcoin policy. So I don't know if I'll have time to read this entire thing, but I'll get to some of it. Chair Harrison and prospective presidential candidates, we, representing a range of Democratic officials, candidates for the House, and members of Congress, write to urge you to take a forward-looking approach to digital assets and blockchain technology. The area holds immense potential for American innovation, economic growth, and financial inclusion. Representing the emerging stance of the Democratic Party in the United States, leaders such as the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, and majority of House Democratic leadership have recently supported pro-digital asset legislation. However, there is a public perception that the party holds a negative viewpoint on digital assets, largely due to the current SEC's approach to these transformative technologies. We believe that the previous hostility does not reflect our party's progressive, forward-looking, and inclusive values. A refreshed leader of the ticket represents an opportunity to change that perception. I completely agree. Such a great opportunity for them to step in and say, you know what, like, we're going to end this. And you know what they did, everybody? Here's Mike Germano, president of Bitcoin Magazine. Well, now the game begins. Already working on FOIA requests. Will take months to get to the truth. This is a direct reaction to the Bitcoin conference, and they want us to send a message. What did they send? What did they say? U.S. government split the $2 billion worth of Bitcoin into two separate addresses, 10,000 BTC and 19,800 BTC. And this happened Monday, the day after the Bitcoin conference, the day after, or a couple days after Donald Trump promised that if you were to get elected president, he wouldn't sell any of the Bitcoin that the US government currently has in custody. So what I got to say is very simple. Like, it's very easy to talk. Actions are expensive. And, you know, I appreciate Congressman Ro Khanna. I appreciate those members of the Democratic Party that wrote that letter. But currently, I see Operation Choke Point 2.0. I see the proposed Bitcoin mining ban. I see Bitcoin wallets just exiting the country. Phoenix wallet of Satoshi. Why? Because of the regulatory environment. I see the Samurai wallet guys get arrested. I saw Roger Ver get arrested. So, like, forgive me if I don't believe you. Like, I don't believe what they're saying. I think it's very easy to, you know, go through Mark Cuban and say, hey, you know, Democratic members are meeting with the Bitcoin industry representatives, blah, blah, blah. It's very easy to say that. But when push comes to shove, time after time, they've shown hostility towards the industry. So anyways, here's Francis Pouliot, CEO of Bull Bitcoin. He says, we may be witnessing the first instance of a power struggle with an incumbent government leveraging its control over a nation's private keys as a measure to harm the incoming new government. I'm here for it. That's a really good take. Another take as well. No, I think that's the last take. Anyways, but the point is that, look, they have an opportunity. The Democratic Party right now, currently, they hold the executive office. Joe Biden has the privilege, has the ability, has the power to free Ross right now. They have the power to just do a 180, show everyone. They had the power to go to the conference and, you know, take that political advantage away from Donald Trump. It's 50 million voters. And by the way, these voters don't lean left or they don't lean right. Dan's saying in the chat, big mistake for the US government selling its Bitcoin. I said this to Saylor. I think it's absolutely crazy that they're selling something that is absolutely scarce for something that they can just create out of thin air. That is absolutely insane. That is insanity. That is crazy. I think that's what happens when your brain is on fiat. So anyways, I don't want this to become a partisan issue. It worries me a little bit. What happens if Donald Trump doesn't win the election? I think that, I mean, Donald Trump warned, like he said that during the speech, he's like, they're going to go after the industry if I don't win the election. And they're not showing me otherwise. They're walking back their words a little bit, but their actions are not being walked back at all. Muzz, as a Bitcoin entrepreneur that is based in the US, Does, the political environment, like, well, what are your take? What's your take on the Bitcoin conference? What happened? And what's your take on this? Looks like it's becoming a partisan issue. What's your take?
Okay. So, I mean, take on the conference. I mean, it was amazing, right? I mean, we can talk about all that. We had a Satoshi Nakamoto, Sophie saying it was so much fun. As far as the political effect on the industry, the scene at the end of the movie where there's just the dead bodies everywhere and some have survived, and it's like your camp is just a fiery blaze. That's pretty much where it's at now, after what we've just gone through here with the current administration. It's just been nearly impossible. Every roadblock, just not wanting to see you succeed has been really the strategy with Operation Choke Point 2.0. A lot of our companies with Lightning Ventures, they're trying to get live here. They're trying to get MTLs. They're trying to launch innovative card products, lending products, wallets, and just at every turn, they're just trying to stop you and be unsupportive. It's holding back innovation. It's holding back the industry. And quite frankly, it's a bunch of horse shit, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But everyone's looking forward to a change, right? A change in the guard. Their whole thing about the, moving the coins to spite Trump. I mean, how stupid can they be? You guys beat this to the horse already, but oh my gosh. I mean, are they just trying to lose votes? Are they trying to alienate themselves from this entire group? It was a packed room. They wouldn't let another person in there. A lot of enthusiasm and energy. They have to have seen this. Supposedly David Bailey had that tweet, he invited Kamala or whatever. That would have, quite frankly, been terrible. But, and then they go and pull a move like this. It's like, are they trying? Are they trying to upset this group of people, which I think is a lot larger than they estimate?
100%. Like it's incredibly short-sighted. And again, it's like, look, you had the Democratic representative saying it there. Like, it's like, this is inclusive, right? Which is, a progressive cause. And it's like, Bitcoin is money by the people for the people, like Natalie said. And I would say Bitcoin is money for the lower middle classes that get the most affected by the ravages of inflation, which are supposedly the people that, the Democratic Party is supposed to be representing. And I'm not saying it's a monolith, but like, the RNC, the Republican Party has taken a public stance on the industry. They said they'll protect the right to self-custody, they'll protect the right to mine. The Democratic Party, clearly there's divisions internally, but the leadership of the Democratic has taken a very public stance. They might be saying stuff, but their actions are showing otherwise. And again, like you were saying, Muzz, like, moving the Bitcoin to spite Trump. And it's just to spite him. Like, it's just to it's just absolutely insane. Yeah, absolutely short-sighted.
They had the pieces to finish the wall.
Yeah. It's absurd. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, Bitcoin fixes all of this. Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, well, look, Nico, you and I have done our best throughout the last year or so to give the Democrat Party the benefit of the doubt in regards to their takes on Bitcoin. But as we've seen the last year and obviously longer, they've been doing everything to try to handicap the Bitcoin movement, the Bitcoin industry, and Bitcoiners at large. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the first business day after the Trump speech at the Bitcoin conference, they start to move their Bitcoin around. One, I think, though, we don't fully know yet if they're selling it, which is not fully clear. But I mean, why else would they be moving their Bitcoin after Trump said, like, we want a strategic stockpile of Bitcoin? Though a very interesting point of the fact that they moved that much Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure the fee cost was like 66 cents, which like you couldn't do in traditional financial world, which obviously shows the use case of Bitcoin to anyone that is paying attention to the technicals here. But as Rokana was saying, and we've been saying this for a long time on the show, we get a lot of flack for it. But Bitcoin is the money of the people. It is the most inclusive, equitable. What else are the memes that they use? Fair money in the world. Like, Bitcoin is for anyone. Anyone that understands the problems of the world, which is the broken money, should be saving in Bitcoin. And I've gotten a lot of flack on the show, and Nico's gave me some pushback on it because I started to go really hard on the Democrat Party when they started to fight Bitcoiners. But it really blows my mind that supposedly the party of progressives is the party that is actively fighting Bitcoin and paying cover for, the corporate lobbyist and big business and all the stuff that they supposedly claim to fight against. And now I think, as we say all the time, Bitcoin has a way of exposing incentives, and the emperor has no clothes. It's becoming very clear that the people in power at the Democrat Party do not care what their constituents think in regards to Bitcoin. There's a huge untapped market of Bitcoiners, a voting population that are seeing the writing on the wall, and they're like, all right, so I may be a Democrat, and now that party is actively fighting against my best interests. And as we saw yesterday, the fact they're moving that Bitcoin, we'll probably cover this by the end of the week. We'll see what actually happens with that Bitcoin, whether it hits an exchange or not. I don't think it's a coincidence that we heard the speech from Trump, and now that Bitcoin's moving. And it really is what you guys just said. It seems like the Democrat Party is doing whatever they can to spite anything Trump is doing. And it also kind of reminds me of what we've been saying for a while on the show of late stage fiat, that the people in power are literally just robbing the empire of everything they can before they realize that they are going to lose their positions in power. And again, standard meme of man thinking of the Roman Empire. We've seen this happen before in the past. This is not a new scenario playing out. If you're a student of history, you know that this happens once the empire starts to crumble. And hopefully we can right this ship, which is what a lot of Bitcoiners want to do. I'm not really in the camp of being an accelerationist. Let's burn it all down, because I think that would be worse for all of us. I think there's still time to fix and rewrite the course of humanity, of planet Earth, of America in general. But it's going to take a lot of work. And the party that is in power right now seems to be actively doing everything they can to stop Bitcoin, which is obviously horrible for Bitcoiners, but horrible for everyone at large.
100%. I think that's a really, really good point, man. So yeah, anyways, I hope this changes, and I can't iterate the point enough that I said in the beginning. Bitcoin is not a left or right thing. It's not a liberal versus conservative. It's really the party of fiat versus the party of Bitcoin, the party of green versus the party of orange. And hopefully we have more Democrats like Ro Khanna, coming to their senses and realizing you can't stop Bitcoin, right? What's the Kamala Harris thing again, Opti?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
We should just keep memeing that into it. We should just make that a big. We should just make that
such
a
a bad meme, but it's a good meme in Bitcoin.
We should just make that a Bitcoin meme. Anyways, guys, if you're enjoying the show right now, the 1,220 of you guys that are watching live just between YouTube and X, and also the 50 or so of you guys watching live on Rumble, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos. All right, everybody.
Hey, wait, Nico, before you go, Muzz wanted to chime in real quick.
I was just going to say, we really don't know what was behind that move, and we may end up congratulating the U.S. government on implementing some very advanced UTXO management.
This is true.
I mean, let's be real. We don't know.
This is true.
100%.
It's true.
Maybe somebody wants to play with a Sparrow wallet at the government. They need some tests,
Yeah, bro. They just watched a BTC Sessions video, and they're just like, all right, let's do a test transaction, but it was with 10,000 Bitcoin. That could be it. That could be it. All right, everybody.
Multi-sig setup coming soon for the U.S. government.
Let's get to the culture. Lots to talk about.
The Daily Culture.
All right, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pull app. Stack friends who stack sats. Download the Bitcoin social layer. It's a great resource. You're going to a new city. You don't know anyone around you whatsoever. Pull up the Orange Pull app. It literally tells you geographically what Bitcoiners are around you. It gives you the ability to send them directly. It's also a great resource for Bitcoin only events, and is the best way to reach me directly. I don't really answer Twitter DMs or email these days. So if you want to reach me directly, download the Orange Pill app, send me a message, and I take the time every week or so to answer every single one of you guys. So download the Orange Pill app today, scan the QR code, check the link in the video description, stack friends who stack sats. All right, passing it on to Opti and Muzz. I'm so excited for this conversation because, guys, like, this is, I don't think this is something that I've heard a lot of people ask. I've heard a lot of people talk about. But I'll pass that question on to Muzz first. It's almost as if the game is skewed for individuals who want to invest in companies. Like it's like, and it's a little bit unfair. Like, you know, imagine being able to get into Amazon, imagine being able to get into Facebook, and how things currently function. It's pretty difficult to get into those early stage startups as an investor, especially if you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah. And there's a big learning curve too, and it's completely unfair, and it's just a part of the system, right? It's just another way, you know, that the government hates you. That's pretty much, it's true. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I remember when I started investing in private companies or wanting to learn more, right? You start reading a few books and you see what type of returns you can make. And then you start to learn, and then you start to, where can I do this? Okay. If you are an accredited investor, even if you are an accredited investor, okay, and that's a certain level of income and net worth requirements, even then it's still hard to find deals. Even then it's still hard to learn and go, right? Especially with small minimums as you're learning, because it is a long journey. And then there's these crowdfunding portals where anyone can invest. So if you're an unaccredited investor or what, no matter what, you can invest something. Okay. And something is better than nothing. And some of that's dynamic after a certain point. But it's all, you fill it out, you putting it in there, and, you know, they will allow you to invest. So that's fairly new. It started in 2012 with the regulation crowdfunding as a part of the Jobs Act under Obama. And that allows for private companies to actually raise capital directly from people, right? Whether it's their biggest fans or aspiring investors, it provides some access to this area. So it's fairly new. And there was a lot of big companies that came out and started doing this. Whether you had 15 juice bars in Texas, or you were working on an AR headset, or you had a startup or a SaaS company or whatever, you could actually put a little bar on your website, raise money from some of your biggest fans and your users, and deal directly with, and allow people to participate in these funding opportunities, which are otherwise like really hard to get into. So that's really what Thunder Funder is. It's a new regulated portal where anyone can invest in open source startups, projects, and Bitcoin projects. So that's what we're doing. It's an extension. It's a new evolution from Lightning Ventures, which we invested in pretty much, I mean, most of the outstanding, awesome Bitcoin startups here. And we're able to offer those opportunities to people, but they had to be accredited. They had to be an accredited investor. And, you know, I like to often joke, everyone's an accredited investor if you click the right button. And that's actually true, because that's how it works. But we're removing that whole hurdle, getting a regulated portal. Now we can talk about the deals live. We can have fun. We can do more things in a public space that we can't do with what we were doing with Lightning Ventures. So I'm super excited about it. And I'm just glad that you had me on, man. Thanks.
Man, and that's incredibly exciting. So, and the walk, like let's walk through like the process, right? Let's just say, and I kind of went through this, Muzz, and you were basically my first experience investing into startups. And you're right, the learning curve is quite high. Kind of don't know what you're doing. I'm just throwing, you know, a couple thousand there, a couple thousand there, a couple thousand there. I have no idea. So what would be like, it seems like it's, thank you, Opti, for answering the question, but I'll pass it on to Muzz. Like,
we got audio listeners,
if someone wants to get started, what are the steps? So they head over to thunderfunder.com. What should they expect? What do they need to do? What is the process like for someone that has absolutely no experience doing this?
So let's just start with, you know, we just got this license Monday of last week. So really cutting it down to the wire in terms of, you know, doing what we did in Nashville. You know, we had two booths and the pitch contest and the main stage announcement, definitely down to the wire. And the process for getting our application completed included really scrutinizing every word on our website. Okay. So this will become more robust, right? Building out a community, education, okay, hackathons, tournaments, okay, other sort of resources. We want to help a lot of founders too. We want to do a lot of good. This is not just about join this platform and invest. Okay, that's great. We need those people. Okay, but it's also about like, are you a builder? Are you looking for a job? Do you work in HR? Just building a community of people to get around, to come into the open source and Bitcoin startup investing world. You know, we invested in Pleb Lab. I love Car. They're going to be a very early partnership. Okay, working with them on the grassroots of it. You know, John's from Bolt Fun. Bolt Fun is on a little bit of a hiatus, but that style. Okay, so we need to put a lot in the community, and we also had to pass a very rigorous initial test for this website. So I look forward to it changing. But what do? You basically just click sign up. Okay, and when we have our first live deal, which looks like it's going to be LN Bits here in about 3 weeks, you'll just get an email. You'll get an email, or you'll see that day, hey, you have an opportunity to invest in LN Bits, and you can read about the deal. You can view the pitch deck, and you can ask questions, okay, with a message board and all that stuff. You can read the Form C filing, which is actually what we had to file with the SEC to get the deal live. And then you can choose to invest. And right now in the beginning, it's just a fiat investment for now. We're working on implementing Bitcoin payments ASAP. That is something that we are working on very soon. And that was the #1 request that we got at Lightning Ventures. How can I invest with Bitcoin? How can I invest using Bitcoin? You know, we were locked into the AngelList platform. They're great. AngelList is awesome. But they just have no desire to implement Bitcoin payments. And it's just never going to happen. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to all the boundaries that we can push. Like, what about if you're a founder and you do a raise with Thunder Funder, and at the end, when we're getting ready to close that, maybe you had the option of accepting those funds in Bitcoin instead of just having to take a wire to your account, right? Or maybe there's a little slider that we can kind of do that. These things don't exist, and I'm going to do my best to try and bring all these exciting things out there. But so basically, Nico, you wake up in the morning, you get that email from Thunder Funder. It says, hey, you can invest in any company today, right? Whatever the company is that we're going live with. And you say, yeah, Muzz, man, I'm in. Here's $200. And you click the button. And maybe you want to use your American Express card and get some rewards there, or you want to do the ACH transfer, or maybe you want to send a $200 wire, which I would not recommend. But you're going to fund that deal. We're going to do our campaign with everything that we do, interviews, etc. And if we close that deal, let's just say that it's $100,000. Okay, so not a huge deal, because we're allowed to raise up to $5 million with this license. Okay, so then what do? All those little investors are basically consolidated into one line item on that company's cap table, and it'll say Thunder Funder LN Bits 001, whatever it is. Okay, and we're going to ship that money, and that's closed. Okay, and in your dashboard, in your portfolio there, you'll see that you have one investment. Now, this is completely illiquid, right? With all the disclosures and disclaimers and every darn thing that FINRA makes us do, that is the reality of it. There is no trading here. There are those things. Other platforms have those things, right? But we're not doing that. Okay. So, you're just waiting at that point in time. There could be some liquidity opportunities down the road, but you need to assume that that $200 that you just invested in LN Bits or Strike or Bring In or a mining company or whatever you're doing, you're building that portfolio. This is low time preference. It plays right into the same mindset that a lot of Bitcoiners have. Okay, it is very low time preference. So that's basically it.
And that's something also like to keep in mind, right? Which is, it's not liquid, but it's you are essentially, you are investing in a company that you believe has a future, and that company eventually either goes public or gets acquired. And that's where you potentially can make a tremendous amount of money. Now, the probability of that, what's the statistic, Muzz? Like 1 in every 10 it's like 9 out of 10 startups fail or something like that?
So look, there's a lot of different numbers, and some will say it's in the 70%, and some will say it's 90%, and some will just exclude the really big winners, right? What's that Jeff Bezos quote? Give me a 10% probability of having something that'll do 100x, and I'll take that bet, every time. So look, your big wins, the big outliers, they call it return the fund, will return the whole fund, even for the ones that don't. Because there's a lot of deals where maybe you just get your money back, or maybe you get half your money back, or maybe you get 3 times your money. Okay, but they're not going to be those big returns. But those big returns are certainly out there. And if you use an example like pick any company, right? I don't want to pick one, but pick your favorite early stage Bitcoin startup. And if they're raising on a $10 million safe note, right? And we're going to go into all kinds of education. We're going to have a bunch of cool info to really break down how these things work. What are these instruments? Are they really as complicated? Do you need to have a Harvard MBA to invest in these startups? You do not. So it's a $10 million valuation, and just back of the envelope, they become a $500 million company. Okay. So that's a 50xer, right? That's 50 times your money. Now, if you say all day long, well, why would I ever do this instead of buying Bitcoin? Or why would I ever do this instead of something else, right? It's not an either or. And there are a lot of time periods where it will overperform. And there are other short time periods where Bitcoin will overperform, right? So it's all about complementing it, right? It's another asset class that you can invest in. Like when we raised our first fund in 2021, the Bitcoin price was like 65, 68,000, right? People invested, maybe they sold that amount of Bitcoin, right? 0.4, whatever it was. And they invested $25,000 into our first fund. Well, here we are later. That fund that I have has a small IRR markup, right? We have a small markup. It's single digits. Okay. We just went through a bloodbath. Okay, everything else came after it. BlockFi and everything else went through a bloodbath. Here we are on the other side. That fund's fully deployed, and I get to send the LP updates that there is actually a markup, right? It's performed positively, and at that point in time during those updates, Bitcoin 53,000, in the 40s, etc. Right? So it all depends on the time horizon and what happens and kind of where you get in, and that can go the other way too, right? But I'm a big fan of diversifying and having investments in these startups, because the odds of Bitcoin doing a 50x from here, some new cool company, whether it's Foundation Devices, I'm thinking of your other sponsors, or the Orange Pill app, okay, which are both Lightning Ventures portfolio companies, by the way. The odds of them doing a 10xer in a shorter amount of time than Bitcoin 10xing from here is a lot sooner, and it can happen very fast. And just in my own personal portfolio, something that's up 70x in less than 24 months, I've seen it. Like I have it. I know it happens. And I'm not sure if Bitcoin's going to do that. Conversely, throwing some Bitcoin into a secure storage and not doing anything with it, we all know it's not going to zero. And there is actually a chance that these other investments could, so all of those disclosures, right? But the fact that the government, last thing I'll say on this, the fact that the government doesn't want you to participate, okay, that you have to meet some nonsense hurdle, okay, they want you poor. They didn't want you buying Bitcoin. Half of them still don't want you buying Bitcoin. They don't want you investing in this stuff, because these early stage technology investments, it's massive when you look at the wins. It's massive. I mean, $10,000, 25 grand in Uber's seed round was like 100 million at the IPO. Like, I don't even know how you get that anywhere else. 25 grand in Airbnb's seed round was like 2 billion, like with a B at the IPO. Like, how do you do that? Yeah, that takes 11 years. Okay, 11 years you had to wait. I think it was worth the wait. And those are two outlier examples, right? But there are many of those type of examples, but yet the government will let you walk into any casino You don't have to meet any income requirement. I can ruin my life. I can ruin my life. And that's actually their business model. The casino relies on that. They need that to exist. And yet that's totally fine. But you know what? If I want to put $1,000 and start 9, oh, no. The government needs to protect me from doing anything like that. So it's complete nonsense. And I'm just excited that we finally have something that's open to everyone.
Absolutely, 100%. And I can't emphasize this enough to everybody. Like, you're investing in the Bitcoin industry and you're investing in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So you're supporting Bitcoin entrepreneurs build Bitcoin products of which you are going to use, right? This is exactly what Thunder Funder focuses on. You guys are focusing on essentially supporting and building out the Bitcoin industry. And a lot of things that what I've noticed with a lot, and Opti and I are both in this vote as building in Bitcoin, even though it's a media company, it's a little bit different of a business model, but it's still a business nonetheless. So sometimes you have to invest in yourself. You do, and we're taking the masochist route of bootstrapping, but not everyone can do that, right?
Let's have some fun right here. So you got this awesome daily show, right? Simply Bitcoin. You've been doing it forever. You guys grind like nobody's business, right? Okay. You're here. You got this Simply Bitcoin. And you say to me, Muzz, damn it, if I just had 800 grand, we could do we could take it to the next level. We could do so much more. And you have a plan, right? So you can bootstrap and you can grind it out and you can go that way. But you could come to Thunder Funder and say, you know what, we're going to come up with something very creative when we work with you on RSUs, right? Some revenue sharing unit, okay, type of a deal for your media company that allows you to leverage that to all your fans and all these people out there. And, if they invest $100 or $200 or 12 grand, whatever they decide to invest in you, it aligns them with your success. They're your biggest fans, and it's really cool to be able to offer that to the people that are there to support you, right? You get to leverage them and you get to give them a return, right? You get to do the right thing and you get to involve them. So it's something that I really hope that creatively people like yourself, even, creative mining deals, right? Where you can invest fiat and receive a dividend type of a payment in Bitcoin. Okay. We can do a lot with this Reg CF license. A lot of the things that are out there in normie land, they do things like they'll buy Michael Jordan's first pair of tennis shoes. And, you can invest in that, right? Yeah. The government says it's okay without qualifying. All right. You want to invest $200 into a share of Michael Jordan's shoes that they acquired from this auction. Now, I'm not talking like crypto and now it's no, I don't mean like that, but like that's the deal is you have that piece. And then when they sell that, okay, or however that happens, you can earn a return. They do it with Picasso paintings. They do it with other fine arts, and they've gotten really creative on ways that they can utilize this license in sort of new ways. Straight debt deals at interest rates, right? Maybe there's somebody who's building the Bitcoin Citadel, right? And he's got, 700 acres somewhere, and there's a model and there's a whole plan for that, right? Or the private cities and those type of things, right? Really cool out there ideas. And I want to be creative in the things that we get on the platform. So I hope maybe we even do a Simply Bitcoin deal.
Oh man.
Hey Muzz, you mentioned investing $100 or $200. Is there a minimum investment for the audience out there, or like what's the requirement here?
So that actually comes down to what you guys want or what the founders want. Okay. We'll be able to, once we have a little bit more experience, because we haven't closed a deal on there yet. I mean, we have experience from the accredited syndicate and Lightning Ventures, but once we figure out what people want, we can tell the founders what works best, but ultimately it's your decision. And someone might have I want to have a $500 minimum. If that's what you guys want, or if that's what the founder wants, or whoever, then that's what we'll do. We're there to work with them. If they say, whatever works best for the platform, and if the minimum's 100 or 250 or whatever it is, there's just ultimate flexibility. There isn't a set number. we want to do what the entrepreneurs and the founders want and what's best for them. So we're just here to work with them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's beautiful. It's extremely exciting. Guys, head over to thunderfunder.com today. Check it out. Support, invest into the Bitcoin ecosystem. What Mike was saying, this is alternative, right? And it kind of gives you an amazing opportunity. Like now, it's easy to say this in hindsight, but imagine if you had the opportunity to invest in something like Strike in the very early days, right? Imagine if you had the opportunity to invest in some of your favorite Bitcoin companies that now are very well known, but back then, you had the opportunity to invest in them. You already would have made a great investment, right? So this is the type of opportunities. Trump said it in his speech. This industry is just in its infancy. I truly believe that. So yeah, it's extremely exciting. So I do want to thank Muzz for coming on the show.
Wait, let's give Muzz. What is the last 2 sats, the final message you want to leave with the audience? It could be about Thunder Funder, it could be about Bitcoin, it could be about life. What's the final message you want to leave with the audience?
If you have any interest in learning about angel investing, learning about early stage companies, being on the forefront of the coolest stuff out there, I would urge you to join our group, get in the fold, check out thunderfunder.com, check out ltng.ventures, just get in the fold. And that was one of my greatest joys when I psychotically invested in over 1,500 companies. In all sorts of industries, is you're really on the tip of the sphere for everything that's going on. The people that are doing flying cars, the people that are doing drugs that make your dog live longer, and VR headsets, and all of these kind of things, right? You get to see it all. You get to see it all, and the innovation that you see from these companies, it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see what's going on. So, as much as I am, I'm tasked with shilling thunderfunder.com as much as I can, it's really to start building the community. We need a community of people that are not just investors. So if you're thinking, oh, well, I would never invest into a startup. I would suggest just joining and getting in the fold and seeing what's out there. And we just went through like the craziest bear blow up. I mean, Silicon Valley Bank. I don't know if your audience was following that. There was a lot of scared people. That was a pretty wild weekend. And I can tell you, after being through the other side of it, when the IPO market is robust and there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions, there's going to be so much consolidation in this Bitcoin world. What they're going to buy a lot of these companies. And if we all know that this is going to work, just like in the late 90s and early 2000s, you had a chance to Cisco Systems, Microsoft, AOL. There was just so much that you could invest in at the time. So it wasn't just about the internet. It was about all these things being built around the internet. And that's what I'm all about is if we know Bitcoin's going to win, what about everything else around it? And how do you do that? And you know what? Not even that. Like, it's fun. It's fun to own a piece of some of your favorite companies and startups. So that's pretty much it for my shill of the day, guys.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, Mike. I've seen Mike. I've seen Mike think about this, work on this for many, many years, and I've just seen kind of just this evolve into what it is today. I'm incredibly proud. Might not understand fully because, like I said, I'm a media guy, but I know his heart is 100% behind this, and I'm incredibly excited to see how this ends up being built out. And I also think it's an opportunity. I've partaken in when Mike was with Lightning Ventures. I've partaken, put a couple $1,000s behind some companies that I know the name of, and just to kind of diversify and just because it's always fascinated me. So happy to have Mike on the show today, and hopefully you guys find it interesting as well. So head over to thunderfunder.com today. This was your show for July 30th, 2024. This is Simply Bitcoin Live. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields, and our special guest for today is Muzzman from Thunder Funder. All right, everybody. Love you all. We'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.